Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kirsten Martzi, and I'm the Manager of Education and Community Engagement Programs at Brattleboro Museum and Art Center. It's my pleasure to welcome you here tonight for this Abenaki Cuisine demonstration with Chef Jessee Lawyer. Admission for this program is pay as you wish. If you'd like to make a donation, you can do so at our website at brattleboromuseum.org/support. And you'll also find information about membership on that page as well. This exhibit is presented in connection, or this event is presented in connection with the exhibit Nebizun, Water is Life, which is on view through October 10th at BMAC. In tonight's program, Jessee Lawyer will demonstrate how to cook an example of Abenaki cuisine. You are welcome to ask questions at any time throughout the program. You can do so if you're here on Zoom. You can use the Q&A function or the chat. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can leave a question in the comments and we'll pay attention to that too. And I'll ask Jessee questions as he goes. So with that housekeeping taken care of, I'd like to ask Jessee to turn on his camera and mic while I introduce him. So Jessee Lawyer is the head chef at Sweetwaters in Burlington, Vermont. As a culinary artist, he creates indigenous specialties using Wabanaki ingredients. He descends from a long line of indigenous artists and continues his family tradition as one of the last two native families in the Northeast that makes miniature horsetail coiled baskets. He also hand carves traditional soapstone pipes and contemporary soapstone sculptures. He draws inspiration from his father, who taught him to carve. So Jessee, welcome. Thank you for being here with us tonight. It's great to see you.
Well, thank you for having me, and everybody welcome. So tonight we're going to be cooking using our traditional ingredients that we had around here, some not traditional, and so just kind of using our traditional foods as the center of the plate to create this dish. So what we're going to do is wild rice and masa crusted walleye cooked in bear fat on bear grease and flour tortillas with a napa cabbage slaw and a grilled corn relish. So a lot of different flavors, a lot of different ingredients, but we're going to get to it. So first thing that I did about an hour and 20 minutes ago was to get the dough prepared for the flour tortillas. And what I did for that was 2 cups of all-purpose flour mixed with 5 tablespoons of melted bear grease or just room temperature bear grease, and mix it with a fork until it was kind of crumbly, like big clumps of sand. And to that, I added 2/3 cup of hot water that had 2 teaspoons of kosher salt dissolved in it, and just brought it together with my hands into a dough. Once it all came together, wasn't looking quite shaggy, I kneaded it for about 2 to 3 minutes on just a regular surface, put it into a ball, covered it with plastic wrap, and set it aside. So we'll get to this in a little bit, but first we're going to start with the slaw. So for the slaw, we're going to take half a red cabbage and we're going to shave it. Also half a green cabbage, and again, we're going to shave that. So now into the cabbage, 2 or 3 good pinches of salt. About the same maple sugar, a little bit more. Then you're just going to use your hands and just work it in there. maybe some more salt. So what the salt and the sugar is going to do is it's going to start to draw some of that moisture out to make the cabbage a softer bite. You're more than welcome to use napa cabbage or just green cabbage or just red cabbage. I just like the color scheme of the green and the red, and red cabbage does have a nice bit of flavor to it. So we're just going to set this aside. And to the slaw, we're going to add red onion, again shaved, and then some shredded carrots. So half a red onion. As thin as you can get it. I have one carrot already peeled. Take it on any box grater and give it a shave. So as many of you are probably wondering, this isn't a traditional, what anyone would think of as an Abenaki meal or Indigenous meal. And that's not what I'm trying to do. Try to treat it like any of our art forms, using some of the old ways in a modern context and always trying to push the boundaries and what we're doing. I always say that, we become extinct if our culture or if our art just stays the same and stays stagnant. And I see the same with our food. Like I always want to push and progress, but while maintaining and keeping the indigenous ingredients the center of the plate and kind of, what catches your eyes first. And that's exactly like what the wild rice and masa crusted walleye will be. So that's all of our vegetables for our slaw. We're probably gonna get a bigger bowl to mix it. And
Jessee,
next we'll make the dressing.
we had a question.
Okay.
Cameron says, thank you for the opportunity to learn. And where can I get bear fat aside from going out and hunting bear?
Butcher. So if you know someone who's a wild game butcher, a lot of people that I know of don't keep their bear fat, and get friendly with a butcher that butchers wild game and see if they'll save the bear fat and render it at home. I should do a video on how to render bear fat, but if you just Google it, YouTube University, you'll be able to find it pretty quickly.
Great, thanks.
But I use bear grease in 95% of what I cook. So anything from popcorn to cooking my pancakes to obviously the tortillas I make, everything gets a little bit of bear grease. For the dressing, we're going to do about probably 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise. You can either make your own or Hellmann's. In a separate bowl, take some honey, about 1 tablespoon. The zest of 1 lemon. And I just turned on my stove because I'm going to get ready to grill the corn in just a minute to make the relish to go on top. When you're zesting a lime or lemon, try to not zest any of the white pithy stuff. It'll leave a bitter taste. So, and you can put more lime in. I'm going to add some apple cider vinegar as well to this. So after the zest, probably half the lime, we're going to juice it. About a tablespoon of cider vinegar. Then mix it. Add it to your mayo. And then mix that as well. You can do this all in one bowl. I just put the mayonnaise in first. Using just a pinch of salt, a couple cranks on the pepper mill. And about a half a bunch of cilantro. Now we're just going to add our corn. Start to grill that. You'll hear some sizzling and popping. Just trying to get some char on it, a little flavor. Hear that popping. Then you mix the cilantro right in with the mayonnaise and everything. It's gonna get a bigger bowl. Cabbage will start to get wet, drawing out some of that moisture, making it a little softer. Give it a little bit more time. Now we're going to take that other half an onion. We're only going to use half of this. Save it as thin as possible. Into another bowl. Another half a bunch of cilantro. And just a really rough chop, stems and all, still a lot of flavor in those stems. And add that in here. One more lime. Juice it. A little olive oil. Salt. Just mix it around. See that corn starting to get nice and toasty. You'll start to smell it. Just looking for a little bit more char. It's best to do this outside, but we got ventilation. We're good. So the slaw and the relish we're making, they're a little different, but this is pretty much how I do the tacos at Sweetwaters. You know, over COVID, I worked out these recipes and made a lot of food at home, and this is what I kind of came to and thought it tasted really good. So we're going to translate this into some walleye tacos. So after this is nice and crispy, just going to shave it down. Just going to go everywhere. Making a mess. So then to this, we're going to add that to the onion, the cilantro, the oil, the lime juice that we just did. Then just give it a stir. Always taste, and you can adjust the seasoning. If I had another lime, I would put that in there, but then we're going to put it in the fridge to cool. All right, so we're going to roll out the tortillas. We're going to start heating up cast iron skillet. Medium-high heat. Flour our work surface. Grab our dough. Give it a little tap. So you can do however big, however small tortillas you want. We're going to go for about, I don't know, about an 8-inch tortilla. So we're going to cut it into about 10 pieces. Roll them all into little balls. Some are going to be bigger, some are going to be smaller. Don't worry, just like us, we're all a little bit different. So can your tortillas. All right. I like to start with them fairly round. We're going for a round shape, but it's not set in stone. Just start rolling them out and move it sideways. We're going for as thin as possible right here. And you can start to see this getting thin when you can see your cutting board, countertop, whatever through your tortilla. And so any spot that you can't, just, you know, give a little roll out. Set that aside. In our cast iron skillet, we're going to do it dry. So no oil in the pan. We're going to cook them off in a dry skillet. I like to do flour tortillas at home versus corn tortillas just because they're a little bit more accessible for my kids. My kids will eat corn tortillas on occasion, but usually not the ones that I make for whatever reason. But they love these flour tortillas. So if you have picky eaters at home, this is a great way to get them to eat. We're gonna go straight in the pan. And if you do hunt and you do hunt bear, always save your bear grease. Try it out. It's a delicious fat, very versatile. It's not just good for cooking. It's good for skin care, hair care, boot care. It's really an amazing fat, but what I prize it for is its culinary prowess. Like I said, I do everything from pop popcorn to make tortillas, make pie crust out of it. If I do fried chicken or fried turkey, I fry it in bear grease. We're just gonna go for 4 tortillas right now, then we're gonna set the rest aside. The other thing too is you can make a bunch of dough and you can portion it and freeze it and make it as you want, so you're not bound to a whole batch of tortillas at once. So that skillet was not quite hot enough. It's just going to take a couple extra minutes to start, but it'll start bubbling. You'll start to smell it. It'll smoke a little bit. A little char is good. Go. All right. So now we're going to start to prepare our walleye. This was last year, a catch from last year that my friend gave me. So we're going to use that today. And you can portion these as big or as small as you want. So we're just going to try and match those to our tortillas. We're just going to take two nice little strips. Here in this little loaf pan, I have taken some wild rice that was harvested by a friend of mine in Maine, and I ground it into a nice fine powder, mixed it with red masa, some dried ramps that I harvested at the beginning of this year, and some kosher salt. So this is going to be our dredge for the walleye that we're going to fry in bear fat. You can see, I like to usually see it a little bit darker, but that's a nice color coming through on the tortilla. Gonna put the walleye, mix it around so it's all nice and coated. Then it's gonna sit here for just a few minutes while I heat up another pan with bear grease. And feel free to ask any questions if you don't know what something is, or if you have
Yeah.
any other questions that, you know, of maybe ingredients that I'm not cooking with, feel free to ask.
We had another question, Jesse, from Elizabeth. They ask, can you explain a little bit more about the walleye? What is it?
So this is a fish. It's a white fish. Its cheeks are delicious, better than the fillets. The fillets, though, are equally delicious. That's pretty much what I know about it. I just know it's delicious. You can catch them in Lake Champlain. This one came from Lake Champlain. I know Colchester Pond has walleye, Lake Carmine has walleye. So any deep, larger body of water usually carry walleye.
Cool.
So this has, that's kind of like bubbles I like to see. All right. So in the pan, probably gonna add about 4 tablespoons of bear grease and just a touch of olive oil to bring that smoke point up even higher. Bear grease has a pretty high smoke point, but not higher than olive oil, so we just don't want it to burn before the fish gets in there. So that's just why I add a little bit of olive oil. So that's what we're looking for.
Nice. We had another question from Mara who asks, where do we source walleye from if we don't fish? Is it available in the grocery store?
I don't know about the local grocery stores around here, but I've definitely been able to get them in the restaurant, sourced through Canada. So I'd probably check out like Ray's Seafood, or even maybe with a Hannaford's or Price Chopper, whatever your local grocer is, and see if they can get it. Because if I can get it in restaurants, it should be able to be gotten.
So ask at the fish counter.
Yeah, exactly.
We had another question, someone asking if there will be a recording of this to watch later, and because we have to leave for bedtime for kiddos. And yes, there will be a recording later. So you can find that on our website at brattleboromuseum.org under programs in the probably next week sometime. There will be a posting with the video.
I'm just mixing up that slaw. That cabbage has had enough time to bleach out some of that liquid, that water. Just mixing it up. Nothing too fancy. Set it aside. All right. So our oil is hot enough. We're seeing a little bit of smoke rise, but the color of the bear fat and olive oil still look good. So we're gonna add our walleye. And usually the rule of fish is roughly 7 minutes per inch. The fillets are about a half an inch, so it should take between 4 and 5 minutes, depending on the temperature of the oil. We've got the oil on about medium-high heat right now, and I'll walk through when to flip it. One thing I forgot to add that you didn't see off screen was I went through my fish with a pair of tweezers. There's sometimes tend to be like little pin bones left. So you just want a good pair of tweezers or needle nose pliers and remove those pin bones, because, excuse me, one of those to the mouth or in the tooth does not feel good.
We had a couple more questions. Christine asked, what was the fish tossed in? Again, they missed that.
So it was wild rice that I put through a food processor and turned to dust. Red masa, ramp powder or wild onion powder, that were picked in the spring. I dehydrated them, threw them through a food processor again, and then just kosher salt. If you don't have ramp powder, garlic powder, onion powder work well. Red masa could be substituted for cornmeal, and the wild rice flour could be omitted. It doesn't have to be there, but it lends a nice nutty, earthy flavor to the fish, and they're both of water, so it's a good combination.
Cool. We have another question. Someone asks, do you feel a deep connection with the ingredients, and can you see any connections with other cuisines or influences?
I do feel a connection with the food that I cook. If it's not myself harvesting it, it's someone that I know that has harvested it, whether it's wild game or foraged item or one of our cultivars. I know who's touched it. I can't say the same for all my ingredients. I didn't know who grew the red cabbage or the green cabbage. Those are brought from Hannaford's. But what was the second part of that question?
And are there like other influences from other cuisines, connections to other cuisines? Oh, I think that's a fire alarm. Smoke alarm. That always happens when I make tortillas too. Mara, I'm just going to answer more questions. So Mara asked, will the recipes from tonight be available? And I'll make sure, Jessee, will the recipes from tonight, will you send me the recipe?
What's that?
Will you send me the recipe so I can pass it on to so I'll email everybody who registered for the Zoom and send you all the recipes so you can try this at home.
Sorry about my smoke detectors. At least we know they work really well. I forgot to turn my hood vent on earlier, and nothing's on fire. We're safe.
Yeah.
So
that happens whenever I make tortillas too. It always gets smoky when I make tortillas too.
So, I mean, I flipped the walleye. They're looking beautiful. So a pro tip, if you have some brown paper bags laying around, these are great for absorbing grease from anything fried. So instead of using paper towels, it's something you already have. So we're just looking firm to the touch, not burnt, and that's pretty good. Transfer to your paper, let cool. Sorry about the smoke detector.
It's fine. It happens. It's a kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, we have another question. Cameron asks, aside from your restaurant, do you know of local Vermont opportunities to try native cuisine, cultural events, pop-ups, etc.?
I don't. I tend to, or I've gotten away from cooking for the public and kind of just focusing on creating new dishes and working on my own cookbook. And I hope to do more in the future, but in my eyes, when I'm cooking this food and doing Abenaki cuisine, I wanted to be able to help out the Abenaki community. So if someone that's not native is making money off from what I'm cooking without giving any back, then I tend to not do it. So I'm hoping to do more in the future. But I mean, indigenous foods are all around us. The number one, number two cash crop in the world is corn, and that is from this continent. It was nowhere else prior to colonization. You think of something that's very French classical, like ratatouille, squash, zucchini, tomatoes. Again, none of those were anywhere else in the world prior to colonization. If you want to like learn more about that and like other cultures that, you know, when you think of their cuisine, like Italians and tomatoes, or, you know, foods from Asia being very spicy, the capsaicin, those are all these are all indigenous ingredients. And Chef Nephi Craig speaks a lot to that. And so that's where I get a lot of that knowledge. So check him out on Instagram. So we're gonna plate these tacos now. Hopefully the fire alarm is done. All right. Just plate. And you can do rice on the side or chips, whatever you want. We're just gonna eat tacos though. Kind of make a T shape right there. Nice helping of slaw on the bottom. One of the walleye.
We had another question, Jesse. They say, thank you to BMAC for hosting, and thank you to you for speaking tonight and teaching us to cook this delish looking meal. Could you hold the walleye fillets to the camera so we can see how browned they are? And they're curious about herbs and spices the Abenaki use to flavor their food. Do you know of any we can find foraged around here?
Spices and other seasonings.
Yeah.
Pretty much smoke and ash. We didn't rely too much on seasonings from what I've talked to others about, what I've done researching. Not a lot of seasoning, just, you know, a lot of like bone broths, and maple sugar is a big one. I mean, obviously wild onions when it's in a soup or a stew in spring, that'll season it. But as far as like salt and pepper, not really. Things I use a lot that we have around here that we do use now as seasonings are like sumac, the wild onions, mushrooms for seasoning, a lot of smoke. So that's pretty much it. Oh, and the last thing I want to do, because I like mine a little spicy, I'm just going to shave a little jalapeno, put that on top. And there you have it.
Looks great. I'm hungry.
Yeah, the mix of the masa and the wild rice, the masa for crunch, you do get some crunch from the wild rice, but it's more of the flavor for the wild rice, that nutty, earthy flavor. And for anybody that's never had wild rice, it's technically not rice, it's a grain. It is an aquatic grain, aquatic grass. It's the seed to the grain or to the grass. And there's a lot that goes into processing it to make it edible, but it's so worth it. It's delicious. It's high in nutrients. It's, yeah, just a wonderful grain that's local to this area.
Are those like the long black, right?
Yep. So,
and it's local. It's
Yeah, it grows around here. It grows. So as far as like the big harvesting regions, like the Great Lakes area,
Huh.
And I would always buy native. They, there are still Ojibwe that hand harvest and process rice, and they do it very ethically and with conscious decision making. So, and you can get wild rice that's wild harvested and stuff that's cultivated. I mean, it's still wild rice, but the wild rice that's hand harvested and wild is beyond measure better than cultivated wild rice. So.
Cool. We had another question from Jill who asked if you could explain again what red masa is.
So red masa, I don't know exactly which corn it is. So it's from, his name's Chef Dave. He's Mohawk from Ganawage, I believe. But he has a masa cornmeal business called Corn Mafia. And I believe he has a website now where you can order it. And this is his Lying Mohawk masa made with red corn. So masa is ground from hominy, which is flint or dent corn that's been treated with hardwood ash, and it takes the outer shell of the corn kernel off. Otherwise, if we ate it as is, it would give us a crippling bone disease called pellagra. So treating it with hardwood ash or lye to remove that outer shell makes it more completely nutritious and won't give you pellagra. So, and it also adds a very unique flavor for anybody who's had regular cornmeal versus had like a corn tortilla. The taste is evident that that was treated with something, and that's the lye or the hardwood ash. Lye and the hardwood ash are the tasting.
And that's Corn Mafia?
Corn Mafia, yeah.
Cool. That's great. I'm gonna check that out. As a few people said thank you. So Cynthia and Christine said thank you. And then Mara said, truly beautiful. Thank you, chef. Really appreciate your time tonight and sharing your knowledge and culture with us.
Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you for putting up with the fire alarms. And
yeah.
hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's real. It's live. That's what happens. So
chefs make mistakes. So don't let TV magic stop you from cooking.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thanks everybody for coming. If you have more questions, feel free to email us at info@brattleboromuseum.org and we'll make sure that your questions get to Jessee. Please come see the Nebizun exhibit. It's on view through October 10th. And visit Jessee's restaurant in Burlington, Sweetwaters. It's in its final days, right?
We close our doors September 5th. It just sold, and it will now it's sold to the Farmhouse Group, and they're moving their Pascolo location to our location. So in 3 to 4 or 2 to 3 months, it'll be a completely different restaurant with a different feel, and it's very exciting. Sad, but exciting.
Yeah, well, good luck with that transition. And thank you so much for sharing your food with us tonight. This was really, really wonderful. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, great. Have a good night, everybody. Take care.
Good night.
Bye.